have a seat at the table. And this is regarded as taking back control. Yeah. It seems to me it's like getting on a bus, giving the bus driver loads of money to go wherever the bus driver wants to go. But on the plus side, we can sit on the top deck pretending we're driving the bus. And that is what has been negotiated for us. And so Brexit has been very bad for politicians. Politicians are now regarded as the least trusted and least respected of all professions, including estate agents. It has come to a sorry state of affairs, hasn't it, where even estate agents are looking at politics and going, no, I couldn't take the lies and the bullshit. But we have got some of the good MPs with us here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. They will be coming up onto this stage. We will get them all up at the end, and to just practice what we are going to do at the end, so as we welcome our MPs who are going to come up here one by one and then all together, we need to practice what some bold people down here were practicing just before I came on. It was on the video. We got 700,000 people doing it on October the 20th. We demand a people's vote. That is what we want you to be doing, and we want to just practice that we are good. We have people who will be largely spending their evening looking at the backs of people's heads, so we want particularly good efforts from you, because you will be in the front line looking out to all these people. So on the count of three, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start you off. We demand a people's vote, and I want you to take it on for about 5 lots, just to make sure we are in good voice before we welcome our first guest tonight. Do you think you can do that? Yeah. Okay, here we go. We demand a people's vote. Brilliant, very good, that's fine. That was 5, that was good. Okay, so save it. But when it comes to the moment, I want the banners in the air, I want the feet stomping, I want you to live it, yeah, for those 5 chants, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure now to welcome our first of our guest speakers tonight. As we said earlier, as young people who have most to lose from Brexit, so would you please welcome, mechanic's apprentice from Northern Ireland, would you please welcome to the stage our first speaker tonight, Sarah McClooney, ladies and gentlemen.
I hope everyone's doing well. No? It is said, there is no time like the present, but unfortunately at present we are running out of time. A few hours ago, a Brexit deal was apparently completed. It's a shoddy deal, bad for young people and the UK, but a deal nonetheless. Parliament will be asked to vote on this deal and given an ultimatum by the Brexiters. It's my way or the highway to vote for a bad deal over the fear of a no deal at all. I'm not a political activist or a regular public speaker. I'm quite terrified up here, to be honest. I studied a motor vehicle apprenticeship. I'm just a young woman from Northern Ireland, And I'm scared for my future, along with thousands of other young people's futures. Fear drove us here. Fear keeps us on this damaging path. And only bravery will avert this disaster. The MPs that are in this room tonight have stood by the courage of their own convictions. And as a great leader once said, it takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. And that's what many people in this room and across the entire country have done. On behalf of young people, apprentices, and Northern Ireland, I thank you all. Do we not get clap? No. Thank you. And when you leave here this evening and go back to your family and friends and the lovely house that you've all worked so hard for, think of your children and theirs. There's a gift that each of us give to the next generation, the dream of a better life for our children. For most of us in this room, there's nothing more sacred or important than that dream. For those watching tonight, think of them and whether you'll be able to look your children in the eyes, knowing you did everything, fought with everything you had for their future's sake. And whilst time may not currently be on our side, the judgment of history will be. Let's win a people's vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Sarah. So we're going to crack on with our second speaker. Obviously, for us to be able to get a people's vote, we need to get enough MPs to vote for one. So would you please welcome the MP for Redcar, somebody who represents, in fact, a Leave constituency. So please welcome very warmly, Anna Turley MP.
London. It's fantastic to see so many of you here tonight. Thank you so much. Just by being here, you are taking a stand against the biggest economic and social disaster we face in Britain in our lifetimes. As Andy said, and as some of you know, I represent an area that voted 67% to leave in 2016. Now, I listened really hard to people in that referendum campaign, and I understand completely the reasons why people voted the way that they did. In the North East and on Teesside, the last few decades have been hard. Our coal mines that powered the nation closed. Our shipbuilding that dominated the seas closed. Our steelworks that built the world closed. A proud and resilient area that was once the beating heart of powering Britain's industrial empire in decline. With deindustrialisation, unemployment brings a sense of anger, loss, and of being left behind. So, of course, when people were asked in 2016 a simple yes-no question, which said, are you happy with your lot? Or, do you want to make Redcar or Teesside or the northeast of England great again. Of course, people wanted to vote to take back control over their lives. They wanted to vote out of anger, out of frustration, and out of desire for change. And that's what we saw in 2016. And I will never, ever forgive those who exploited that anger and that frustration. We know who they are. They exploited that frustration for their own right-wing ideological obsessions. They promised my constituents things that could never be delivered. They blamed the EU for political choices that were made here in Westminster. It wasn't the EU that closed our steelworks. It wasn't the EU that hammered our industry and manufacturing. It wasn't the EU that's given us 0 hours contracts, a low-pay economy, austerity, and has savaged our public services. These were political choices made here in Westminster, and how much worse are these going to be under Brexit? But for many in my patch, they simply said, we've got nothing to lose. Well, I'm afraid there is still plenty to lose, and always it's working people that stand to lose the most again. And that is why I will never support this Tory Brexit, which the government itself admits will hit my area hardest. I will not vote to make my constituents worse off. I will not vote to take jobs and businesses and the money out of their pockets. Britain can be great. Redcar and Teesside can be great, and it doesn't need to leave the EU to do that. My constituents must have the chance to vote again now the reality is clear. This disaster can be stopped. The people must speak again. Thank you.
Anna Turley. Now, the People's Vote very much has cross-party support. We're very keen to show that tonight. We have MPs from the Green Party, we have MPs from the SNP, from Plaid Cymru, from the Liberals, from Labour. But we also have, ladies and gentlemen, some MPs from the Conservative Party. So would you please welcome first to the stage, the former Secretary of State for Education. Please welcome Justine Greening.
Well, thank you very much. I can tell you I'm never going to back a bad deal for our country. I want a people's vote because I believe in democracy. But I know I'm not here to win all of you over. You already are on board. I'm never going to support a government that's trying to force through an unpopular deal that pleases virtually no one and will do nothing to bring our country back together. And I remember the moment when I started going through this proposal earlier in the summer, reading it, and I really wanted to see some kind of compromise work, but it just didn't. And I remember reaching the conclusion that this hadn't got a chance of succeeding, and that I shouldn't be prepared to accept something that was second best for my country. And like Anna says, although today I represent a bit of this amazing city just up the river in Putney, and I represent thousands of young people, it's actually the youngest demographic constituency alongside Battersea in the whole country. The average age of a voter in my community is 37, it's 38. Although I'm there now, where I grew up was a place a bit like Redcar, it was Rotherham. There, people voted 70% leave. I feel as passionate as Anna does about doing whatever I can to improve those parts of our country that have been left behind. But this is not the way to do that, and that's why I can't support it. And I have to say, I am always someone who's thought for myself, because I guess arguably I'd be in the Labour Party if I just listened to everybody around me growing up in Rotherham. But the point is, we shouldn't just do this because we're getting told we have to have it. We don't have to have it. I'm not going to accept a deal that leaves this country with less control over our lives, not more control. I'm not going to accept a deal that means we have less influence in the continent we're part of, rather than more influence. And I am not going to accept a deal that will totally undermine our credibility in the whole of the rest of the world, because even if some people in my party can't see this as a bad deal, everyone else around this entire planet can. So I want a people's vote, because it's the right solution to take this Brexit decision out of the hands of all these stalemated politicians who patently can't agree, and take it away from the backroom deals. I hate it when politics shuts people out. And that's exactly what those backroom deals do. They're grubby, and they have no place in this democracy of ours. So I want a people's vote because it will give that say back to the people. And I want a people's vote because it's our best chance to be able to move on as a country and to get on to some of those challenges that were there before and will also be there well after whatever happens on Brexit. And to all those people that I meet who I know voted Remain because they think things are fine, my message to them is things aren't fine. It doesn't mean that we should do Brexit, but things aren't fine in our country. And whatever happens, we can't go back to the Britain that we've been. So finally, I think our task is to assure everyone in this country that they have the right to have their say, whatever it is, on this next stage of our country's future. I'm going to make my case in this referendum, but it's up to everybody to be able to have the same say. I shouldn't get some golden ticket because I'm one of 650 people who happen to be an MP. I want everyone to be able to cast a vote. I want to say two final things. One is we have to, at some stage, start finding a way to bring our country back together. If we win the chance to have a people's vote, and I think we can, and I think we will, we have to make sure it's a better referendum than the last one that happened. And those politicians that seek to divide our country, we have to cast them out. They're no longer acceptable. So, let's seize the chance for a people's vote. It's the only real, meaningful vote that's actually going to happen on Brexit. But whatever the result, let's make sure that we bring this country back together and we make sure it's a successful country in the future. Thank you.
Justin Greening. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to have somebody who was with us at the launch of the People's Vote back in April, was with us in Parliament Square. Would you please welcome the MP for Brighton Pavilion, former leader of the Green Party, Caroline Lucas.
Well, thank you so much. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be here and to see all of you here as well. Thank you so much for coming. And I know you're here because you know, as I know, that this is a really critical moment. That literally over the next few days and weeks, there are going to be a couple of votes that are going to be taken across the road there, which will shape the future of our country for potentially generations to come. And that is why it's so important that you are here. And I think we are here with a very clear message for our government. And our message is that we will not be blackmailed into accepting your miserable deal. That we will not accept a deal that, far from taking back control, would strip our sovereignty away and hand it to others. That we will not accept a deal that no one voted for in June 2016. This deal has no mandate. This government has no mandate. And you know, you're making such a wonderful noise that I'm really hoping that the government can hear you across the road, because what we are saying, loud and clear is that this miserable mockery of a deal is nothing less than a con on the British people, and that is why we demand a people's vote. And we're here as well because, you know, we won't be bullied. We will not be bullied into accepting that there is no alternative, that it's either a disastrous deal or a catastrophic no deal. That is no choice. Because we know that there is an alternative. It's a bloody obvious alternative, and the alternative is a people's vote. Because we know that democracy did not end on the 23rd of June 2016.
that democracy is an evolving process, otherwise we would have the same government forever, God forbid, and that a people's vote is precisely the democratic alternative. It's not undemocratic to go out to the people to seek their views and to make sure they're happy with what we want. But friends, as others have said, a people's vote is not about turning the clock back and pretending the last 2 years haven't happened. Because those people who voted Leave because they believe that our country is insupportable in so many ways were absolutely right. It is. We are a country of grotesque inequalities. You know, the Commission on Social Mobility did a study of the 30 so-called cold spots in this country, the 30 places where it is most difficult to get on in life. And it's not a coincidence, I think, that every single one of those places voted to leave, because they thought that things couldn't get any worse. And we understand that and we can share that sense. But what I think we know now is that the Brexit on offer would make everything 100 times worse. We know that Brexit would make our poorest communities poorer still. We know that Brexit would endanger our rights, our freedoms, that it would undermine those protections that look after our environment. We know that the freedom of movement would be at risk, that wonderful right to be able to travel and to study and to live and to love in 27 other countries. My friends, that is a right that we celebrate, that we do not want to throw away. And finally, we know that Brexit would undermine peace in Northern Ireland. And to me, it is so criminally reckless to put that at risk. So, this is crunch time. The future is being decided now. That's why we need this people's vote. And I want to ask one more thing of you right now. I want you to contact your MP and urge them to reject the false binary choice being presented by Theresa May. Remind them that once the deal is voted down, they do have options. Remind them that the best, most democratic option is that people's vote. Remind them that Brexit is not inevitable. It is not a done deal. Let us keep standing up for what we believe in. Let's keep reaching for a bigger and better future for all of us. So please make sure that MPs over there can hear your voices today, tomorrow, and every day until they get the message. Because we know that when people come together, we've shown that we can change the course of history. We can change the course of history again now. We can together demand a people's vote, and together we can win. Thank you.
Caroline Lucas. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Wait. Save it. We want a big finish at the end. So, brilliant, you've got it. That's what we're doing at the end, not now. So, we've got a little treat for you now, ladies and gentlemen. In my opinion, one of the most astute political commentators in Britain at the moment, also a footballer, ladies and gentlemen. We have got a special message for him now, and would you please watch that message on the screen from this person.
So here we are, 2 years on from Brexit, when our country decided to leave. the European Union. I think it's fair to say back then we didn't really know what it would entail. We didn't really know the ramifications for leaving the European Union. I think gradually over that period of time, things have been made much clearer. We're starting to get a slight feel for what it would mean. The ramifications for different areas of Brexit, and it's becoming completely clear that there are very few positives, and it's almost unanimous that it will have some sort of debilitating effect on our economy at the very least, and other issues such as the Irish border. So it's really reached a stage now where perhaps we should consider a people's vote. That's why I'm supporting it. I think it's very rare in life that you get a chance to use the benefit of hindsight. How many times do we say, well, with hindsight, I would have done things differently? With this, it's 2 years on. We have the benefit of hindsight if we use a people's vote. Give the people the opportunity to have another look at it and have a look at what this deal with the European Union, whether it's an exit or not, really means. It's time for a people's vote.
That's it. Here we go. Please welcome Gary Lineker.
Thank you. No reception like that for about 30 years. Thank you very much indeed. I'm not going to be the one that's lecturing or speaking today, but I am going to have a chat with someone very interesting and very topical in the news at the moment, who in some ways was like me, that originally he was a Remainer. Like me, he was disappointed by the result of the referendum. Like me, he thought, well, that's it, we've got to accept it and we've got to try and get the best out of it. And then, like me, as time passed by, started to realise that actually this really is an incredibly damaging thing to our country. Unlike me, he's a Member of Parliament. Unlike me, he was also a Minister in the government. And recently, he too has decided to become a People's Vote campaigner. Can I please ask you to put your hands together, a warm welcome for the MP for Orpington and the former Minister for Transport, Joe Johnson. That was a pretty warm reception as well. Can I just firstly say I'm only doing this because I'm after Dimbleby's job. Now he's retiring. Not this chair keeps swinging that way, but it won't go back that way. So I'll move around. First and foremost, Joe, what did you think of Manchester United's formation at the weekend?
The Blues won, Gary. That's the main thing.
They very much did. On a serious note, you have now started to campaign for the People's Vote. When did you start to think that you wanted to do that? Is it a recent thing? Was it over a long period of time?
Well, as you said in your kind introduction, I was campaigning for Remain. I was very disappointed by the referendum result. But when it came in that morning of June the 24th, I felt, well, we've got to respect this decision. And for the following 28 months, I did my best within the confines of government to try and make a success of Brexit. And that really was what I felt was important, to try and make the most of it and to help the Prime Minister get the best possible deal for the country. But it became pretty clear to me over the months, and particularly as the Chequers proposals came out over the summer in that white paper, that we weren't going to get a deal that was in the national interest. And I began to have very serious concerns about whether we were in fact going to be able to make a success of Brexit. And
I know there's been some kind of start towards the divorce proceedings today. Do you think there's any deal that is beneficial to this country, though, in terms of Brexiting?
Well, what we've learned over the past 24 months or so is that we're never going to get a Brexit that matches in any way the fantastical promises, the false prospectus that was made during the referendum campaign. Nothing can ever match that false prospectus. The public is going to be desperately let down because they were, in a way, misled by the campaign commitments. So it's that realization, really, that effectively the public is going to be duped. They're going to get a deal that doesn't reflect at all what they thought they were getting in that referendum result. And because the gap is now so big between those pledges and the reality of the deal that's going to be unveiled before Cabinet tomorrow, that I think it's imperative we now go back to the people and give them a chance to confirm that they actually do want to go out of the EU on this basis. And if they don't, then we stay in.
So how difficult a decision was it for you to do that?
Well, it's always difficult because, I had to resign as a government minister. You go into politics in order to do stuff. It generally helps if you're a minister. And, you work hard for these positions. I loved being a minister. I was head of the policy unit and minister of the Cabinet Office, then loved being universities minister, working with Justine so closely in the Department for Education, a terrific boss. Could not have enjoyed working with anyone more than Justine. And then I moved over to transport, another great opportunity. So you don't let these things go lightly. And also, going against the government is a very, very difficult decision. I've never rebelled on anything before in the 8 years that I've been an MP. So it does require
Are the people that you must have been talking to this about, whether it be colleagues or family? He has more than one sibling, by the way. I mean, I know Rachel. I know well. She's very much back the people's
we're a hotbed of Remainers.
Yeah, but did you speak to Boris about this at all? Or?
Look, we speak about all issues. We speak about all issues, and we've got different views on Brexit. But the funny thing, Gary, is that we are absolutely united in our analysis that this deal is not in the national interest. So we are united. We're united in dismay at the proposals the government is putting forward, and we're united in rejecting this very, very paltry offer which we're getting. It's clearly not in the national interest, and our duty now is to ensure it doesn't get through Parliament.
Do you think more members of... Sorry. Do you think that more members, possibly, of the Cabinet will do what you're doing? Have you talked to other members of the Cabinet that perhaps share your views?
Well, I talked to many members of Parliament, colleagues in the Cabinet and elsewhere, and I'm not going to do them the disservice of naming them, but I know how much they all think deeply about these issues, and they're all looking deep into their consciences and thinking whether they can support this deal.
What do you think will happen?
Well, look, it's always hard to predict. The full weight of the government PR spin machine is now going to kick into overdrive. The whips are going to tighten the thumbscrews on all our colleagues across Parliament, in all parties probably. So it's very hard to predict, but I think you've got to have confidence in our system of representative democracy. Our MPs are there to look after their constituents' interests in the final analysis. And I knew that when I thought about my constituents in Orpington, I had absolutely no doubt that they're not going to be well served by the terms of this deal.
Do you feel... Do you feel, given the nature of your resignation, that you're putting country before party?
Well, some people have suggested that. I think it's a false dichotomy. I think that's not a reasonable choice either. In fact, I think for the future of the Conservative Party, or indeed any party whose MPs back this deal, I think the future of the Conservative Party will be gravely imperiled if we're associated with this if we're held responsible for taking the country into this absurd new relationship with the EU, where vast swathes of our economy will be governed by rules that will have had no hand at all in shaping. It's completely unsustainable and unacceptable for a proud democracy such as ours. And that's why I couldn't abide by it.
And finally, Joe, we've got lots of other speakers coming on. I just want to ask you if you've got a message for not just the people in here who obviously are largely supportive, but people right around the country. What can they do to change this? How can we get a people's vote?
Well, everyone needs to get out there and campaign for it, because it's not a done deal. We don't have to accept the terms of debate, the choice the government is offering between this lousy deal and the chaos of no deal. There are alternative options that are going to provide a brighter and better future for all of us and all of our children.
One final question. Have you also got a message to the Prime Minister and the government in terms of Brexit?
Well, look, the message is clearly we've got better choices as a country. How is it possible that our ambitions for ourselves have fallen so far, so fast, that we're content to not compare this deal to whether we're better off compared to no deal, but not to look at whether we're better off compared to our current situation in the EU. So I think we need to reframe the debate and actually lift the horizons and be more ambitious for ourselves.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Johnson.
Thank you very much.
Gary Lineker and Joe Johnson. So there we have it from Gary, a chance to have another look at the decision. View the people's vote as some sort of VAR on the initial decision, ladies and gentlemen. And it now gives me great pleasure to welcome somebody whose party have fully supported the whole idea of a people's vote. Would you please welcome the leader of the SNP in Westminster? Here he is, Ian Blackford MP, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, good evening, friends. It's a pleasure to be with you here tonight. As Andy said, let me give you a message from the Scottish National Party. We had a debate and a vote at our conference in October. We unanimously voted to support the people's vote. Now, you know, the one thing I would say to every single member of Parliament in the House of Commons is that when you go into that place, you do it on the basis that you're there to make the lives of people better. Well, friends, we know from all the economic analysis, from the analysis of the UK government that was shared with members of Parliament, from the analysis of the Scottish government, that Brexit runs the risk of destroying up to 8.5% of our GDP. In Scotland alone, we run the risk of losing 80,000 jobs. Now, friends, nobody that voted in that referendum voted to become poorer. And I would simply say to every single member of Parliament, when you're faced with the meaningful vote over the next couple of weeks, think about the responsibility that you have to your constituents. Don't put your constituents on the dole. Because that's exactly what Brexit offers. And you think about it already. We've lost the jobs from the European Banking Authority. We've lost the jobs from the European Medicines Agency. 2,000 well-paid good jobs in London. Who in their right mind would commit economic suicide to the extent that Brexit is? This is about providing leadership. It's about recognising that we were sold a pup in that referendum. It was mentioned earlier. We should be collectively ashamed of the way that the referendum was held in 2016. People simply didn't know what they were voting for, and we have a Prime Minister that is trying to force through Brexit. And if we look at what's happening, now I'm glad that because of the power of Parliament that we have a meaningful vote at the end of the process. But the government and the Prime Minister is trying to stop members of Parliament laying down amendments that we can vote on ahead of the meaningful vote. What a disgrace. What an affront to democracy. And I say this to Theresa May, you're not on. Friends, let me give you some good news. Tonight, there is a letter which has gone from Theresa May on a cross-party basis, signed by myself, Jeremy Corbyn, Liz Saville-Roberts from Plaid Cymru, and Vince Cable from the Liberal Democrats. And we've said in that letter, members of Parliament have got to have the ability to put down amendments before the vote, and that must include a people's vote. Friends, to use the phrase, we're taking back control. Let me tonight, let me thank Jeremy Corbyn, because this is the first time that the Labour Party, the SNP, the Liberal Democrats and the Plaid Cymru have worked together and will work together to defeat Brexit. Now, friends, I've mentioned the four party leaders that have supported that letter to Theresa May, but it doesn't stop there. Because Ken Clarke, who's been a valiant soldier, has also supported this. And I say to people across party, I salute Justine and Joe that you heard from earlier. Let's work together on amendments. Let's make sure that we have the majority to protect the interests of all our constituents and stop the process that's taking place. We cannot allow the economic self-harm that will take place with Brexit. Let me, if I may, just briefly say one thing about Scotland as well. We had our own referendum in 2014, and I accept that we lost that. I respect the vote that was taken. But we had a 650-page document. And one of the things that particularly impressed me about that referendum campaign is that we allowed 16 and 17-year-olds to have the vote. What a disgrace. What a disgrace that our young people that are going to be most affected by this were not given that opportunity. And let's make sure, all of us that are MPs, if there is a people's vote, this time 16 and 17-year-olds in the UK must have the vote. I want to, in closing, paraphrase John Steinbeck. This is not a lost cause. This is a cause unwon. Friends, let's win it.
Ian Blackford. So we now have somebody who comes from a party that have been brilliantly persistent on this issue. Would you please welcome the MP for Oxford West and Abingdon, the Liberal Democrat MP, Layla Moran.
All right, so I want you all, with me, to cast your mind back to that summer in 2016. Yeah, I know, it's depressing, I know. But, what was different in your life then? You know, so much has changed since then. And for me, the main thing that's changed is that then I was a teacher, and now I'm an MP. And I was elected in a general election that people seem to have forgotten actually happened, on a Liberal Democrat manifesto to get an exit from Brexit through a people's vote, and that's exactly what I intend to do. But the point is, in that election, something else happened too. Theresa May lost her majority. And the people said, no, we don't want you to have an outright majority. We're giving you a hung parliament. And what we want you to do is to reach out across political divides, across all parts of the House, and deliver a Brexit that everyone can get around. But what did she do? She went with the hardliners in the DUP. And what are they doing today? They're all over the telly and Twitter deserting her. She's botched it. And now we face having to vote on a deal that literally no one actually wants. And, you know, I'm a proud pro-European. I went to the European school in Brussels. Like, you cut me and it's European stars that come out. But the fact is, this deal is a world apart than what was being promised by that Leave campaign, isn't it? It's a world apart. And it leaves us as a vassal state. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't know what a vassal state was before Brexit, but I do now. And what it means is that we will no longer sit at that table, that we have no voice, and Britain deserves so much better than that, don't you think? But everyone, don't be fooled, because the government's playing a game with us. Have you noticed how they're ramping up all this stuff about no deal? Do you know why they're doing it? Because they know that this deal is going to please no one, and they want us to think that we only have one binary choice: no deal or their bad deal. And we don't have to accept that. And there is another way. And that other way is so logical. So logical. If you don't want this deal, then you should have the option to choose between this deal and what we've currently got in a final say on that Brexit deal. So this deal is going to pale into comparison when finally we have this referendum that compares what we've got now. And this botched Brexit deal must be stopped. This government's completely messed it up. They can't deliver. But we can actually get out of this mess. We don't have to do what they say. And we need a people's vote on that deal with staying in the EU on that ballot paper. Thank you.
Layla Moran. So it's now with great pleasure that we're going to welcome somebody whose crucial campaigning the MPs wouldn't actually be having a vote on the final Brexit deal. Would you please welcome the Conservative MP for Beaconsfield, the former Attorney General. Please welcome Dominic Grieve, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow. Thank you for coming here this evening. Thank you for holding the faith on this issue. I mean, I find I wake up in the morning sometimes a bit of despair, and I think it's 28 months since I went and appeared on an Any Questions programme, and I was asked, what should we do about the referendum result a week ago? And I said, well, we should keep our options open. We should try to understand why this happened, but we shouldn't impose red lines on ourselves, and we should keep open the possibility that people may change their mind about the decision they've made. And as a Democrat, I'm perfectly aware that elites can lord it over people, but there's also a thing called the tyranny of the majority, which is that if we close our minds to the possibilities of change, then we start to behave tyrannically towards our neighbours. And that's what we've actually been experiencing for 28 months, with this relentless onslaught that because of one single decision, we just have to roll over and accept it, even when, month by month, it becomes clearer and clearer that, in fact, the likely outcome is going to be utterly third-rate compared to the option of remaining in the EU and participating in it. And we have a Prime Minister who's an honest person who, when asked the question, so we will be better off when we're out, consistently refuses to answer, and yet sees it as her duty, without any attempt at altering course, to take us out of the international treaty organisation that has actually served this country's interests very well. And then we're told it's all about sovereignty and the will of the people. I mean, sorry, I'm a lawyer, and I happen to know as Attorney General, forget about the EU, we're signed up to 14,000 treaties, and that's only going back to 1834. We're actually the biggest treaty-making power in world history. 700 of them have arbitral mechanisms for determining disputes over interpretation. That's actually what the European Court of Justice does. And we've thrived on it. That's actually what's made this country great. We did this at the height of our imperial grandeur, and we've done it consistently, particularly since the end of the Second World War, because we know that in an interconnected world, treaties, understandings, and a willingness to pool sovereignty where appropriate is really good for the well-being of all our citizens. And that's what we're being asked to throw away. A really good inheritance, and throw it away, quite frankly, for what looks more and more like rubbish. can I look my children in the face in future years and say, well, I just let it happen. I just let it waft off and accept tamely that as this is the will of the people, it has got to happen. Now, I'm a Democrat, and ultimately the will of the people does prevail. I have to accept that. If people really want this sort of Brexit, then they will have it, and I will raise my hands and say, I've done my best. I've tried to persuade people that I think this is a terrible mistake, but I will accept it. But what I will not accept is this tyrannical dictate that we just have to go along with something. Go along with something which there is no requirement to carry out if people have changed their minds. That's the simple question. And that possibility clearly exists. Indeed, in my own constituency, I can see the pretty clear signs of it happening. Now, it may or may not succeed, I don't know. But it is extraordinary how there has been this consistent attempt at closing down the debate, at narrowing the options, at insisting there's no other choice. Of course there's choice. And the idea that people are going to revolt against being offered a democratic choice seems to me to be a pretty clear absurdity. But we have to recognise there's a big challenge. I mean, firstly, we have to exercise some common sense in the face of the likely deal that we are going to be presented with and explain why it is unacceptable. And the second thing we've got to do is we've got to come together in Parliament, not always an easy thing, put party considerations to one side and unite to deliver what is needed. I'm prepared to do that. I know I have many Conservative colleagues who are too. You listened to Joe, you've listened to Justine, you've heard from them. And I also know, and this is the important bit, that we also have to persuade a lot of other Conservative colleagues who actually know very well that this is a disaster that is being visited on our country, to just have the courage to take the risk of going and consulting the people again. They want the best for their constituents, but they're frightened of the risk in delivering it. And that's where each one of us in this hall comes in, because we have to go out and persuade them that they should take that step, because it is so manifestly in the interests of everybody in this country that they should. And if we can do that, with that moderation, then on top of that, I'm convinced that we can win the argument in a referendum as well. The British people have plenty of common sense. They can indeed see, as was just commented, when they have been sold a pup. And that is exactly what has happened in this case. So we just got to be determined, level-headed, clear in what we have to say, and insistent. And provided we do that, I'm convinced that we can see this through, and I'm absolutely committed to trying to achieve and make it happen. Thank you very much.
Dominic Green. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have two speakers left. We've had speakers from all the way across the United Kingdom. So would you please welcome from Plaid Cymru, the MP for, I believe, Dwyfor Meirionnydd. Thank you very much. I've had a round of applause there. I've been coached within an inch of my life on that particular constituency. So please welcome Liz Saville-Roberts.
Diolch yn fawr iawn am hynny. Diolch yn fawr iawn am y gwersi. Thank you very, very much for the invitation. It is important that we hear every voice. You have just heard from an expert and erudite lawyer, and he well deserved that standing ovation which you gave him. But I hope that I will be able to speak, and I think we need to speak to people from our hearts. I hope to have the opportunity again to speak as a mother who hopes for the best and for better for her children. And my children have been able to work in Paris. They have been able to work in Europe. We need to ensure that those freedoms and those pleasures and those opportunities are available to every generation in the future. Now, the Westminster government want people to think that there's only a choice between this deal or no deal. But you know, don't you, there's a better way to reverse the madness that is Brexit. And of course, those of us who represent constituencies in Wales have been told time and again, but Wales voted out, didn't it? Get behind that, make it work. But I will tell you, as the message sinks through to people, as more and more of us talk to people about what the reality is going to be, I can tell you that in a recent poll, 20 out of 22 local authorities in Wales now back Remain. And this, of course, this isn't a done deal. From the Cabinet to the Commons, the Prime Minister is yet to find support for her proposals. The announcement today will only confirm that the Westminster government is happy to bring about an economic act of harm on the country to appease its own backbenches. Now, my party, Plaid Cymru, has consistently called for the least damaging Brexit possible, where Wales and the rest of the UK is in the single market and the customs union. This deal takes us on a trajectory where that would be impossible. Without the detail of our future relationship agreed in legal text, this is a blind Brexit with the devil of said detail to be discovered over the next 2 years. The political declaration is not worth the paper it's written on. As soon as we leave, the Brexiteers can finally kick the Prime Minister out of office. And by that, of course, ensure their mission of an extreme Brexit is complete. Now, we're set to negotiate our future economic, security and political relationship with our closest allies from a position of, frankly, abject weakness, outside of Europe and with an emboldened group of hardcore Brexiteers pulling the strings. But if the Prime Minister is so confident of her offer, she should put it to the people. And I urge everyone, all of those people who are opposed to the disaster that Brexit will bring, and that, as you will see, is a cross-party. We are operating in cross-party routes in ways which we never have before. We have to back a people's vote with an option to stay with what serves us best, to stay in the EU. And to close, this is a vote for all our futures. We must work together. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much.
Liz Roberts. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's our final speaker. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to this stage the MP for Tottenham, David Lammy, MP. Fantastic.
Are you listening, Theresa May? Are you listening, Jeremy Corbyn? Are you listening, members of Parliament? This is a huge, huge moment. And look, I've taken a certain position in this debate. On the 24th of June, I pressed send and I said it was madness. A week later, I found myself saying we needed a second referendum. I took a certain view, but let me just say, sometimes out of very difficult moments, great things happen. And this could be a moment to have a forward vision for the future of our country that really genuinely brings us back together again. And that's why I am proud on this occasion to stand with Justine Greeding and Joe Johnson and my SNP, Plaid Cymru, Green colleagues. Stand with them, cross-party. To say that this is not about division, it is about coming together because we genuinely believe that the best direction for this country is forged by a people's vote. And that is what we communicate powerfully. And there have been moments when people have said to so many of us that we are traitors. They've said things like, why do you hate this country? We didn't march. We didn't lobby, email, write letters, communicate with family members right across the country because we hate this country. We did all those things because we love this country. We make a distinction between patriotism and nationalism. there will be many people beyond this room who couldn't come to an event like this. But I just want to say, on behalf of some of the folk in constituencies like mine, the sorts of people that you saw in the face of the Windrush generation, the sorts of people that made their way out of Grenfell Tower, thank you. Thank you also for fighting for love and not hate, for peace, and also making the case for why a country with an aging population like ours does, in fact, need immigration that is beneficial to this. This is a very serious moment, and it's a poignant week. I, like many of you, will have reflected hard on Sunday as we remembered those that died for this country, that died for all that we enjoy, and in their names we can't squander it. And so, as those cabinet members make their way up number 10 and sit with the Prime Minister, we ask them to think hard about the country. Look into your hearts and be powerful about the problems with this deal. And we ask, when it gets to Parliament, for parliamentarians really to reflect over the last few years of this country. Theresa May said she wanted to bring this country back together again. We are so divided. I could never, ever have imagined the divisions that exist in this country in my lifetime. I could never, ever have imagined it. And put very, very simply, and it doesn't matter whether you voted Remain or whether you voted Leave, there was an instruction from the British people to go out and negotiate. And when we look closely at this deal, it doesn't feel like it was a negotiation. It feels like it was a capitulation, frankly. We talked about taking back control. We talked about a sovereign parliament. That's why we did it. And now we will have no say at all over decision-making in this great country. A deal is about a partnership. You leave together, united with the plan going forward. This, my friends, does not feel like a deal. It feels like a brutal divorce. And that is why, when politics fails, the business and the process of your elected representatives does not succeed, there is only one place to go, and that is to the wider democratic mandate, back to the people. In a great but difficult moment in the history of the United States of America, as Lyndon Johnson took a move that would probably mean that the Democrats would lose control of the United States for a significant time, He signed the Civil Rights Act. And in so doing, he said the Democrats have lost the South for a generation. And my friends, he was wrong. The Democrats lost the South for 2 generations. But I say to my Conservative colleagues, if you sign up to this deal, you will lose the faith of the British people for a generation. And let me also say, perhaps because I grew up an ethnic minority in a poor part of this town, bullied and fearing sometimes the National Front. I've always hated tribalism. I hate it in my own party. I hate it in the party of my opponents. It's why I could never, ever stand on the same platform as Nigel Farage. And it's why, on the whole, I've tried to remain, I've tried to play the ball, not the man, within my own party. And so I also say to my very good friend, Jeremy Corbyn, that if you stand in the way of the people, you too will be swept out of office. And so the tide is with us. All that you have done and will continue to do is working. Politics is stuck. As night follows day, we must go back to the people if we are to truly bring this country back together again. Thank you.
David Lammy. So, ladies and gentlemen, take a seat for a moment. David was there in Parliament Square, 700,000 people on the People's Vote March on October the 20th. On the same day in Harrogate, Leave Means Leave managed half the number that we have in this room on 3 days' notice, ladies and gentlemen. You have been fabulous. Well done for showing up. You have seen some very brave politicians come up here on this stage tonight. We hope that they will continue to be brave for our benefit, and they need us to be brave to go out there and contact as many people as we can in contacting those MPs who have yet to be persuaded on the people's vote, and we will have it. Let me show you a video now, the final video narrated by one of our legendary actors, Brian Cox. Nothing is impossible.
So many of the things we value, so many of the great steps forward we have taken, seemed impossible until they happened. The NHS was a pipe dream. The establishment voted against it 21 times. The fight went on until a final vote made it real. Peace in Northern Ireland was a moonshot. It could never be. Until some brave leaders took a chance on peace and people north and south voted for progress. votes for women, civil partnerships, devolution for Scotland and Wales, the movements against fascism and apartheid, often opposed by the powerful, but made real by the people. We came and stood in the rain together, marched together, sang together, fought together, and now we fight again. For our families, for our communities, for our children, because we want our future back. It is time for a people's vote on the Brexit deal, because everything is impossible until we make it happen.